All right, guys. Thank you so much for joining another episode of Leadership Matters with Dr. Sharon. I am Dr. Sharon H. Porter, educator, author, entrepreneur, and speaker. And this is Leadership Matters. And today, my guest is none other than Miss Latoya. And Latoya, I'm like, oh my goodness, I should have got this married last name down. Help me out.
Yes, Latoya Asaya.
Asaya, that's it. Miss Latoya Asaya. She is a former principal, former assistant principal, former classroom teacher, mentor teacher, and she's now a central office administrator in a local school district here in the Washington, D.C. area. So I would just like to say welcome, Latoya.
Oh, thank you so much. And I'm so excited to join today. This is amazing.
Absolutely. And I don't know if you know, but you were my first ever hire as a teacher when I was principal for the first time.
Wow, I did not know that.
I heard you back at Lamont Elementary.
Yes.
You were the first person that I hired. And so it has been amazing to just watch you flourish.
No, thank you.
You've been all over. You've done great things. And so what I want you to do now is just give everyone an opportunity to know who Latoya is.
Yeah. So I feel like I've been literally all over the map, and I am indebted to you for giving me my first chance as a third grade teacher, having no idea what I was doing and coming in through a non-traditional route and just being able to really jump into the classroom and learn more about teaching under your leadership. As you know, I started off in Prince George's County Public Schools and taught there. Moved over to DC, being in the area, and taught for a local charter school for some time around there. And then me and my husband, we relocated to the Detroit area. And during that time, I was privileged to work at a charter school that was in the startup phases, was privileged to lead there in an assistant principal and principal role. And that time was just amazing, being able to impact students, really working in an arts-based school, and just really thoughtfully engaging a community and allowing them to be the leaders of their school. We have since relocated back to the DC area, and now I am a central office administrator, and in my current role, I'm on the innovation team. And so we work with projects that help move forward our district and help us to better impact the landscape overall and really work on systems improvement. So really, really, really enjoying the multifacets of education and just really trying to make a difference in any way I can. And one of my key things is, what impact am I making? So that's always great.
Oh my goodness, I tell you. And you came to Maryland from North Carolina, and we are both alums of Winston-Salem State programs, Round Pride. But you were in Teach for America.
Yes.
And so for our listening and viewing audience they're not familiar with TFA, please explain what Teach for America is.
Yeah, so Teach for America is basically a non-traditional certification program. They pride themselves on picking leaders across the country when they're an undergrad and equipping them with the tools to be teachers and enter into the classroom. And so my senior year, this is when Wachovia Bank was still alive. I had an offer with Wachovia Bank, and I actually was compelled through learning about the achievement gap and all of those things, and was compelled to apply to Teach for America. They have a very rigorous application process. Actually also worked for Teach for America in Detroit. I even left that out. And so was able to jump into the classroom. I learned so much. And it was probably the best decision I've ever made. I'm so passionate about education, kids and families, and creating communities that are empowered to lead and do what's best for their children. And so, Teach for America is a great organization, and I've been privileged to be a part of it.
Absolutely. And, I was just so just amazed at really your naturalness. You were a natural.
Thank you.
And one of the best. And I'm not just saying that. All of us who still keep close from that Lamont clan.
Yes.
We knew you were a special person.
Oh, thank you.
It's just really exciting to see the work that you're doing now. So I want to talk a little bit about your work in teacher leadership. Because you were actually over teacher leadership program, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So yeah.
My work currently, professionally as well as privately, I work with aspiring leaders, mainly assistant principals going to the principalship.
Okay.
But we know that truly the pipeline starts at the classroom level, because you do have amazing instructional teachers that aspire to be assistant principals.
Yeah.
And I will say there, with the caveat, that we're not saying that all amazing teachers must be administrators.
Right.
But there are many that aspire to be in administration.
Yeah.
So tell me, what type of work did you do? Because in teacher leadership, and we know there are many roles, you can be a teacher leader as a teacher, and you can of course move to administration. But what are some of the things that you did in that role in teacher leadership?
Yeah, so my time at DCBS has actually been great. One of the chief responsibilities I had when I first entered the district as a district administrator was to work on a program that we call LEAP. And so through LEAP, there's actually teacher leadership pipelines. And so primarily my role was to help support their development. And so the primary focus of LEAP is helping teachers with content and to deepen their content understanding. And one thing we know, especially with Common Core coming, that like teachers know Common Core really well, and like we have so many content experts across the district. How can we leverage their content expertise, and how can we provide pipelines all the way up from being a teacher leader who may teach half-time and like support teachers half-time through coaching and through leading what we call seminars, which are basically like PLCs, fancy PLCs. And so how can we support instructional coaches to assistant principals and all the way up to the principal level? What is the series of development that we need to make sure everyone has the content expertise they need and we're actually able to have content-rich conversations? We often find that everyone's charged up to talk about behavior or like fixing school culture, but like, how often do teachers get to get into the nitty gritty of like what is happening in the content, and how can we talk about what we're teaching and use each other and learn from each other? And so through my work, I've been able to help support that. I've since shifted though, and now I'm like working more on innovation work and thinking about some systems improvement stuff, which is a little bit different, but it was amazing to really help and guide teachers along a spectrum from teacher leaders to administrators and really impact their development.
So talk more about your role now in the innovation space. So talk a little bit.
So innovation is always a very, how can I say, fancy word. Currently, we're doing a myriad of projects. To sum it up, I would just say, I think that I believe in public schools, and I believe that doing work at scale, you always have to have your ear to your stakeholders, which in my current work streams are principals and teachers. And so currently we're just thinking about like what's happening in the system and then how we can fix it. It's a really very like broad charge, specifically how we can better tailor supports to schools. And so we're in the infancy stages of developing our programs and proposals, but our work focuses on what are our stakeholders saying and how can we better meet their needs.
It sounds so exciting. From that, I mean,
yeah.
How did you get into that space? Was that intentional, or did you?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of my work, I've like been in so many different spaces, and like a lot of it not as intentional, just like opportunities popping up. We did some redistricting. I mean, not redistricting, but restructuring. And so my manager asked if I'd be interested in like joining that team and being a part of that work, and I was like yes, and so jumped on the opportunity.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
And so going back to now the schoolhouse and school leadership, and we know that one of the most important responsibility of a building leader, a principal, is to cultivate leadership. And so those that they are charged to serve, whether it's assistant principals or teacher leaders coming up the rank, shared leadership is imperative if you want to strengthen and build that pipeline.
Exactly.
Can you talk to us a little bit about some of the ways that while you were in those roles, be it the principal or assistant principal, how you really demonstrated shared leadership? Yeah,
I can think of a myriad of examples. I think I would just hone in on just allowing structures for development. And so for a principal, for me, it was important to make sure my teachers are getting better every single day and thinking about what structures allow that. And so giving teachers the chances to do professional development, allowing my fellow administrators to do PD and lead those sessions. And I also think I was also big on teacher voice and teachers being able to lead the way. And so I was never hesitant. I think that the best ideas come from the people who are doing the work every single day and who are actually bending down with kids and tying their shoe and leading lessons and planning rigorously with their teammates. And so whenever a chance came to leverage teacher ideas and teacher spirit and teacher voice, and community voice, those were the times in which I did it. I think currently we talk a lot about distributed leadership, and the key tenets of it is, as a principal, you just can't do it all. And if you don't distribute the leadership and if you don't share it with the people that are working to serve kids with you, then the organization won't function and can't be as successful.
Absolutely. And really with that same token, Jim Collins talk about having the right people on the bus. And
yes.
So we know that it's important, especially if we are really implementing shared leadership or collaborative leadership as it's intended.
Right.
It's important to make sure that you have the right people around you. And that's not always meaning that they are right at that moment, but you're helping to cultivate them to become the right person.
Mm-hmm.
So
Agreed.
talk a little bit about the importance of the leader, knowing the strengths and weaknesses of those around them so that they can maximize that team effort.
Yeah, I think one of the books and authors I live by is Elena Aguilar, Art of Coaching. And in that book, she talks a lot about like the importance of having a coach and having someone who is there to focus on your development and helping you get better. For me, I think that is just paramount. Not only do I want to be that coach to someone else, I also want that coaching and that level of attentiveness and that level of let's continue to get better. One of my key tenets is like, how can I continually to increase my effectiveness in the way in which I operate, in the way in which those around me operate? I'm not doing my job effectively if I'm not helping those around me get better. And so in leadership and in building a school, as long as everyone's getting better, that means that kids are getting better. And so allowing that to happen as naturally as possible and getting the right people on the bus is part of that. Like getting people who are committed to growing is a key tenet in that, because as long as everyone's committed to getting better, then like we know the results will follow for kids.
Absolutely. So let's now talk about the engagement of stakeholders. We know that parental involvement and engagement is paramount into our relationships in the schoolhouse. We also know that our other stakeholders, business partners, the community, all of these are important pieces to the puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
How does, and I'm thinking now of a novice principal just stepping into this building, how would you recommend that they get out to make sure that they're promoting engagement of all stakeholders?
Yeah, I mean, I think, you know, when I stepped into the principalship, that was one of the key aspects that I underestimated originally. And it's so important and so paramount, right? As educators, we can think to ourselves and design these robust programs and we're like, yes, this is what the kids need. But then still the same exact token, like at the core of it, parents know what their kids need and know what works for their kids. I have a 9-month-old now, and I feel like I'm a reflective practitioner because every day I'm thinking about, okay, did this work for him? No, let me try this instead. And so I think it's so important to like reach back to parents and engage those voices. When I was principal, I was able to lead, as I said before, it was a new startup school, lead the effort to start a PTA. And like, you know, in retrospect, it probably was a bold and daring move because I'm empowering the community to have a voice. And often principals are like, but I want to control everything. But it was just so key and paramount to making the school a good school because parent voice matters. And so I would just say, reach out to parents, reach out to the community, learn as much as possible, knock on doors, get on the ground, know every kid's name. Like it is so important just to engage your community as much as possible.
I love it. And let's transition now to the big C, culture and climate.
Yes.
So we know that to really establish a culture for learning and a climate that's conducive for learning, teaching for learning is also imperative in the schoolhouse. And that's a lot of times one of the major struggles for a new principal coming to a school where the climate and culture is already set.
Yes.
So a lot of times it's resetting those norms.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
talk to us a little bit about how maybe either you work to establish that culture and that climate, or just your suggestions for a new principal.
Yeah, I think I love culture and climate. I think it's what makes the school tick. Like, do kids feel happy coming to school every day? Do they have a friend? Do they find this a joyful, happy place to be in? And so as a new principal or as someone taking over a school, or I always think it's just so important to like take time to assess the current landscape and take time to assess like what is the experience of kids on a day-to-day basis in this building and what is working for them and what's not working for them. So not just rash, like we're into the system and do this, like figuring out what's going on and what do kids need and what's working and what's not working. I know some situations are more urgent than others, but as much time as you can take to just diagnose what's going on, figure out what really matters for kids. And then often like shifting the culture of the school doesn't actually start with students, it starts with the adults in the building. It starts with shifting mindsets and changing beliefs about students and like what's happening and what's causing things. If a student is running out your classroom, like have we talked to him and asked him why, like what's wrong? And so like what is our reaction and how does that influence their behavior or change their behavior? So I think a lot of it's having a listening ear, asking why, and then really starting with the adults to make sure they're happy people who are coming to work every day, loving and enjoying their job, to make sure that trickles down to students.
Excellent. And so I always ask this is Leadership Matters. And so why, in your opinion, does leadership matter?
Paramount to me is visionary leadership. Someone who is clear about what they want, why they want it, and in what direction they're taking the ship. And so leadership matters because you need someone to steer the organization, the school in the right direction. And so having sound leadership is just paramount to the success. So I can't say it enough, like having a clear vision and having every action aligned to that vision is what matters the most and is what creates successful organizations.
Absolutely. So what's next for Latoya?
What's next for me? I am enjoying DCBS right now. I think in the future, I definitely want to go back to a school setting and be a principal again. And so trying to figure out, but sometime in the future, I definitely want to be back in schools. I just miss hugging kids every day as they come in and like impacting their educational outcomes on a daily basis. So in a very real one-on-one type of way. So I think one day, not sure what day, but one day.
I do love it. I really do. And so what would be your final message to educators, to leaders, to aspiring leaders? What message do you have for us? Because we're really, we're living in a very trying time right now as far as the educational world.
Yeah.
So what would be a final message you have to educators?
I think it is our jobs to listen to the voice of students. Students matter and they can do anything. And then I would say, remember to have a clear vision and drive towards that vision, because having clarity of purpose is where true impact comes.
Awesome. It has just been an absolute delight, and I cannot say that enough, just to see you walking in the door as a first day principal, first day teacher, now doing all these amazing things across the country, still really serving your community, because that's really what you were, even at Winston-Salem State, that what you were a servant leader. And so I appreciate that. And you stay true to our motto. So
yes,
enter to learn and depart to serve. And so that's exactly what you're doing. So I just say congratulations to you. And I wish you nothing but continued success in whatever endeavors you go forth to do.
Definitely. Thank you so much. It was so great, Dr. Porter.
Absolutely. So guys, this has been my interview with Miss Latoya. I tell you, she is fabulous. And I didn't ask Latoya, but do you have a professional following on social media?
Yes, you can check out my LinkedIn I don't actually know what the handle is, but just search me Latoya Asaya and you can find me.
Okay, yeah, and we can put it in the comments.
All
Absolutely.
right,
So
sounds good.
definitely, if you're interested in more of the work of Miss Latoya, I tell you, you definitely want to follow her. She's going places. She's always has been, and I'm going to enjoy following you as
Thank
I
you.
always do. As I continue to keep up with you, as you can see. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
you. So, guys, listeners, viewers, thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Leadership Matters. Those of you who are catching the replay, I thank you as well. Again, this has been Dr. Sharon, host and creator of Leadership Matters, just reminding you that leadership matters. Have a wonderful evening.